This is Gemara Baba Kama Daf Chof Zayin, and we pick it up on the bottom of Chof Vav Amid Beis. We're 4 lines in the bottom. We're in the middle of discussing different dinim of Rabbah. So Rabbah continues, 4 lines in the bottom. Ve'amar Rabbah Zorak Tinoik Mireish Hagag. One throws a child from a roof. Uba Achar V'Kibla B'Sayif. So one person throws him off the roof. The other person comes along and literally accepts him, quite a bad acceptance, but then he puts a sword out, a sayif, and he kills him. So, of course, in this case, we have 2 people potentially combining into the damages over here. And the question is, who is the one that is chayiv? This is very similar to the previous case in which we had that one person throws a keli from a roof, and the other person comes along and breaks it with a stick. But in this case, it says that the Gemara, this is a machlokes plukta to Rav Yehuda ben Beseira and the Rabbanan. It's a machlokes between Rav Yehuda ben Beseira and the Rabbanan. The Tanya, we learned in our brayso. Hako asar b'nei adam b'asara makalis. What is the story? If 10 people hit someone with 10 different sticks, whether they hit him simultaneously, combining to his damages, obviously they kill, not obviously, but they killed him, or whether it's zach or zeh. What is the story? Says the brayso, this is a machlokes between Rav Yehuda ben Beseira and the Rabbanan. So the Tanakama, the Rabbanan come along as we turn over to Chav Zayin Amud Aleph, and they say Peturin. They say that in this scenario, they are all pater. Rav Yehuda ben Beseira comes along and he says, if it's one after another, why? Because the last guy brought his death closer. Now, if you look at the top, Rashi points out, why according to the Chachamim are they all pater? Rashi says, one is only liable for killing someone unless you kill the entirety of the person. And in this scenario, and therefore, Peturim mi misa. Therefore, none of them did the full killing, and therefore, none of them are liable for murder. Therefore, they themselves are not chayiv misa. Whereas Yehuda ben Beseira comes along and he says, no, if it's b'zachar zeh, then the final one, the final blow, is going to be chayiv. Now, if you look at Rashi, continues for a moment on the second line. Rashi says, the Yehuda ben Beseira chayiv zeh shekibloi b'sayif neshekirav as misasai. Rashi really putting the 2 things together. How is this machlokes, our machlokes of someone throwing a child off a roof and someone else putting out a sword? Because again, it's equivalent to 2 people combining to the damages, 2 people hitting, 2 people, one throwing and one putting a sword out. So according to Rav Yehuda ben Beseira, the last guy hastened the death. Kirev es misasai. Therefore, he's going to be the one that is chayiv in the case of 10 people beating, and similar in our case of one guy sticking out his sword. Continues the Rabbah with another case. Bashar v'kibloi b'karnov. Again, one person throws a child off a roof, and someone else comes along, and not someone else, an animal comes along and gores that child. This as well, says Rabbah, is plukta Rav Yishmael ben Rav Yechim ben Broika ve'Rabbanan. Titania, we learned in our brayso, v'nasan pidyon nafshoi, says the brayso, and someone should give a pidyon nafshoi, which is kaifer, for nafshoi, demei nizik. So the Tanakama, the Rabbanan learned that we evaluate demei nizik, the one that got damage. Rav Yishmael ben Rav Yechim ben Broika Amar demei mazik. So Rashi points out this is a special machlokes regarding kaifer, that according to Rav Yishmael, he says, the name of Rav Yechim ben Broika, it all has to do b'mazik shaiminan. According to the one that did the damage, his value is how you pay for the one that was killed. But according to the Rabbanan, we go b'din nizik. And therefore, in our case, with the shar killed, According to the Rabbanan, if you go b'demei nizik, the person was going to die momentarily. Therefore, it would be potter. Whereas according to Yishal ben Avishav and Braika, you go to me mazik. Therefore, you're going to be chayiv. Case number 2 of Rabbah of the day. Case number 3, V'amar Rabbah. We're 7 lines down. Chav Zayin Amar Aleph. Continues Rabbah. Nafal mirosh hagag v'nitka be'isha. Someone falls off a roof, and he's nitka. He's inserted a ma'aseh tashmish into a woman. What is the story in this case? Says the Gemara, Chayiv b'dalid dvarim. He's obligated to pay dalid dvarim. Rashi points out, again, that we have to be discussing a ruach mitsuya. We have to be discussing that it's a common wind. Someone standing on a roof and a regular wind comes along and blows him off. And that's why he's going to be obligated b'dalid dvarim. The Gemara will explain in a moment. Obiyavimta, if he was inserted, if the ma'aseh tashmish is with his yavama, loy kana does not perform an act of acquisition. He's not kaina the yavama. Says the Gemara. Chayiv, what is he chayiv with? B'nezik, b'tzar, b'ripoy, ub'sheves. Those 4. Aval baishes loy. He's not obligated to pay for the humiliation, for the embarrassment caused to this woman. Why not? Titanan, we learned in the Mishnah, ad shemiskavein. Baishes is a unique entity that one is only liable if there is kavana. And because there's no kavana in this case, therefore he's potter from baishes. V'amar Rabbah, and Rabbah continues with another case. This time, nafal mirosh hagag beruach she'einai mitzuya v'hizik ubayish. Someone falls down with an abnormal wind. Not only does he does damage, he causes embarrassment to the person that he falls upon. Says the Rabbah, chayiv al nezek upater b'dal dvarim. In this case, he's pater dal dvarim because there's a ruach she'einoi mitzuya. Therefore, it's karav la'ines. Ruach mitzuya ve'ezek ubiyesh chayiv b'dal dvarim upater la'baishes. Again, similar to like we just said. Why is he pater on baishes? He's pater on baishes because baishes is an entity only with kavan. However, continues the brayso of in ishapech of in midair, he turns over. Why does he turn over? Because he wants to cushion his blow by falling on the person down below. So it's at some level called kavana to fall on that person. Then chayiv avala baishes. Then he's chayivim for baishes. Titania, as we learned in the brayso, mimash from the back to the pasuk says, V'shilcha yada. We have 2 people fighting, and one of their wives sticks out her hand to help her husband by grabbing onto the person that her husband is fighting with. So from the fact that pasuk says v'shilcha yada, she sticks out her hand in zika, that she grabs hold of the person that is fighting with her husband. Why does the pasuk say v'chzika, that she grabs hold of him? It says this to teach you, since she has in mind to do damage. Even though even though she did not have in mind to embarrass him, but because she had intent to damage, that's enough, and therefore she will be chayiv even for the baishes that is caused. And therefore, says the Gemara, that's the raya to our case. If as the guy is falling, he has intent to turn over, to cushion his blow by landing on the person, that's at some level an element of kavana, and therefore he'll be chayiv for baishes as well. V'amar Rabbah, and Rabbah continues, someone puts a gacheles, someone puts a coal on the heart of someone else, and what happened to Mace? He kills him. Says Rabbah, Potter, you're Potter. Why is he Potter? Because the guy should have taken the coal off his heart. What's he busy doing? I'm not obligated. I put a coal in his heart. He should have removed it. But al big divin israf. Let's say I put a coal on his beged, on his clothing, and the clothing was burnt v'nisrav chayiv. Then I am chayiv. Why am I chayiv in this case? So Rashi speaks out. The reason why I'm chayiv, because he steals. Why should I take off the coal and save my clothing? I just figured I'll take this guy to court, and in court I'll extract the money that is owed to me, and that's the reason why he is potter. That's the reason why he's chayiv. Excuse me. Amar Rava tarvayu teninu. Both of these things we learn in a brisa. Ali by ditinan kavish alav l'teicha or l'teicha mai. Teaches the Mishnah in Sanhedrin that what happens if someone holds someone down inside water or inside a fire and he's not able to ascend. Basically, you killed him, umeis, and he dies. Chayiv, you're chayiv, you killed the person. But if you push someone into a fire or into water, he could have gone out and he didn't. Umeis, potter. Then I'm potter. Why? Because you could have gone up and you didn't. Next case in the Mishnah Sanhedrin, big dai. If what happens, you do the same thing with his clothing. Big dai, ditinan karas ksusi. If someone says, rip my clothing, shavar as kadi, break my jug, chayiv. Then what's the halacha? The halacha is you're chayiv for doing it. But if he said, I'm an as liftar, potter, so we see clearly that if you karas ksusi, even though you told him to do it, you're still liable. Because what do you mean, rip my clothing? He meant. And then I'll take you to Bezdin. Finally, one last shayla of Rabba to close out the parak. Ba'i Rabba. What is the status if you put the gachelas, the coal, in the heart of the Eved? Says the Gemara, ki gufay dami, and therefore you're going to be potter, as we saw that he could have just taken off a kivamayne dami, and therefore you're going to be chayiv. Im tim salem ki gufay dami, shayrei mau, you put the gachelas on the shar. So he went back and he was paishet that lamaisa and Eved has the status of guf, and therefore just like you're potter for the person, you'll be potter for his Eved. Avd Shairai status of Malmain, and therefore you will be Chayiv. Hadron Aloch Ketzad Aregel. We got to do a Chazara. Seems like yesterday we just started Baba Kama, but B'siyata de Shemaya, we move forwards into the third Perek HaMeniach of Baba Kama. Says the Mishnah, Meniach es Gakad. Someone leaves his cat, his jug in Rishus Rabim, and someone else comes v'nitkal, and he trips over it, vishavra, and he breaks the jug. Potter, the one who tripped over it is potter, even though he broke my jug. Vim hizigba, let's say he is damaged by my jug, then balachav is chayiv in iskay. So again, I leave my jug in the middle of the street, and Reuven comes along, trips and breaks my jug. Reuven is potter for breaking my jug, but if Reuven himself got damaged, then I am chayiv in Reuven's damages. Obviously, anyone listening intently is wondering why the Mishnah began by saying Aminiach Zakad, and then the Mishnah ended off by saying, and then the Bal HaChavis, is it a Kad or is it a Chavis? Of course, the Gemara will discuss that right now. Says the Gemara, and as always, not always, but often the Gemara begins first with the Lashainis, first with the terminologies, and then deals with the dinim. Says the Gemara, Pasach bekad v'sayim bechavis. The Mishnah began talking about a kad, and then it ended off talking about a chavis. What's going on? And now the Gemara says, we have another Mishnah that does the same. Nami, we have another Mishnah. A Mishnah and a few daf that says, one guy's walking with his jug, one guy's walking with his beam. This guy's kad, again, it started with chavis, now it talks about kad. Kad and chavis are barrels, jugs. Now the kad is broken by the beam of the other guy. Potter, what's the halacha? The owner of the beam is potter. Possible chavis v'sayim bekad utanan nami, and now we have a third Mishnah. It's going to be towards the end of the Masechta and Gav Kuftes Vav. Zeba b'chavita shel yaim, zeba b'kadei shel dvash. One is holding a barrel of wine, one is holding a jug of honey. Nistika chavis shel dvash. Now it just changed. It went from kad shel dvash to chavis shel dvash. The chavis of the barrel of honey is broken. V'shavach azayena. So other guy spilled out his wine in order of itzlas and dvash l'teicha to save the honey inside his barrel. Ein loy. The halacha is el all he's allowed to collect is the schar that he would take to save it, but not the schar, not the amount of money that he lost for spilling out his wine to save the honey. So says the Gemara, we have three different Mishnayos. We have our Mishnah. We have the Mishnah of one guy walking with a barrel, one guy walking with a beam, then one breaks the other. We have the Mishnah, one guy walking with a barrel of wine, one walking with a jug of honey, and he spills out his wine to save the jug of honey. And each of these three cases, the Mishnah begins with one kad, ends with chavis, begins with chavis, ends with kad. Answers the Gemara on the first wide line. Over here, Chav Zayin Amar Aleph, the new Perek, Amar Papa, Hainu kad, Hainu chavis, the two words are used interchangeably. So says the Gemara, Lamay Nafkamina. Very good, this is kad, this is chavis. So what's the difference between the two? Why do we need to know that they're interchangeable? Says the Gemara, Lemekachu Memkar, for buying and selling. Hey Chidami, what's the case? Says the Gemara. Before we go into what the case is, let's take a moment and see Rashi. The last Rashi over here points out that the Biara Meicher Lasila is a Sheirtz. If I come and I say I want to buy a kad, you're allowed to give me a chavis. And even if I said I want a chavis, which seemingly sounds like it's larger, you're allowed to give me a kad. The fact that they are interchangeable, la halacha, is very relevant because that's the reason why I could give whichever I want. So says the Gemara, Echidami. If we're about a place where they don't call each the other halakarila, so of course you can't give the other one. They don't refer to it as such. Says the Gemara, most people call each by its own name. However, there are those that use the other name. So I would have thought Zilbasaruba. I would have thought classical din of Roif. Go by Roif, meaning, what do we mean go by Roif? What we mean is, and therefore, it should, when I buy the chavis, if this is a majority call it such, you're not allowed to give me a kat. Kamash Malan, as we turn over to Chav Zayin Mebeis, Dein Holchen B'mama in Hacha Roiv, and Rashi points out, in the case where there's a safek, we do not go with the Roiv, and therefore in such a scenario, you're allowed to even give me the other item, and that's the Chiddush of Rav Papa, that said Rav Papa, Hainu Kad, Hainu Chavis, that Lamais you're allowed to give the other item. Uba Achar, V'nitgal Ba V'shavra. And we continue on the top of Chav Zayin Mebeis, quoting the din in the Mishnah. Said the Mishnah, again, I leave my barrel in the middle of the street. You come, you trip over the barrel, you break my barrel, and then you get hurt. So you're patur for breaking my barrel, and as well, I am chayiv for the damages that happened to you. Says the Gemara, my pater. The classical taina that I'm sure many people here are wondering, why is he pater? You're supposed to watch where you're walking. So why are you pater? You stumbled over my barrel, but you broke it. So why are you pater? An interesting case, the entire Shizram is filled with pitchers, therefore there's no way you could have not broken a pitcher by walking, and therefore you're potter. Answer number one. Shmuel Amar Bafela Shanu. Case of the Mishnah is talking about it's the middle of the night, and that's the reason why you can't be held responsible for breaking the barrel. Rav Yochanan Amar Bekeren Zavis. Rav Yochanan says we're talking about a blind corner. Therefore, as you turn the corner, you get nailed by the barrel, and there was no way you could have avoided it. So, three ways of learning the Mishnah. Amar Rav Papa asks on the first teretz of Rav that the whole Rosh Hashanah is full of barrels. Amar Rav Papa lo deika masnitan eloi kishmuel oike Rav Yochanan. The Mishnah is only meduyak, can only be explained either according to Shmuel Or according to Rav Yechanan, Dikarav, if it's according to Rav that the whole Shutram is filled with barrel, Ma'iriya Nitkal, Afilu Shavar Nami. Why does the Mishnah use the word Nitkal? Sounds like he trips. It's nothing to do with he tripped. Even if he purposely broke it, if the whole Shutram is full with barrels, he's allowed to walk in the street. So the Mishnah's wording that he trips sounds either like Rav Yochanan or like Shmuel. Amar Rav Zvin Mishmei de Rava, explaining the sheet of Rav. Hoa din davilu shavar. You're right. Why? I did the Seifa, because the Seifa wanted to teach us him who's like that if he was damaged. Bal chavis chayiv beniska. He did have niska. That's only going to be if he trips. Then I'm obligated to pay for his damages. Avol shavar. Lo, if he purposely went to break my barrel, and he ended up getting damaged, I will not be chayiv my time. So therefore, Ktani Reisha Nitkal. Therefore, the Reisha as well spoke about a case to Nitkal. And Amar Le Rav Abdu Rav Ashi, a fourth way of learning the Mishnah. Amar Rav Mishneh de Rav Ula Lafisha Ein Dark Shalbnei Adam Leis Bainain B'Derachim. What was the kasha? You should have looked where you're walking. And says the Gemara, people do not look where they are walking, and therefore that's the reason why he will be potter if he ends up breaking my barrel. Continues the Gemara about 15 lines down. First line is B'Derachim Havi Ovda bin Arda. There was a story in Arda that someone tripped over someone else's item and broke it. V'chayiv Shmuel. Shmuel obligated the person for paying the item he broke. V'chayiv Rava. Seemingly not concurring with what we just said in the Mishnah that he's potter. So Shmuel Kishmaitze. According to Shmuel, I understand that he says that the only time in the Mishnah that you're potter is when it's dark. Over here it wasn't dark, and therefore Shmuel says you're chayiv. Ela Rava, but according to Rava, Lema Shmuel Svirle. Should we say that Rava holds like Shmuel, and therefore the reason why he was potter because it's only a chayiv? The reason why is because the only case you'd be potter if it was dark, and here it's not. Amar Papa, no. The reason why Rava said you're chayiv is karna da'atzrave. The reason is because the barrel was on the corner of a public olive press, and in such a scenario, he is chayiv if he breaks it. Why? He should have looked where he was walking. Meaning, in our Mishnah was in the middle of the street, and therefore that's the reason he's going to be potter. The case of Rava was in a situation which the person had permission to leave the barrel there. That is the reason why if someone else trips on it, he is going to be chayiv. Continues the Gemara, which is going to see almost tangential, but we'll see where it comes back around. Shalach le Rav Chisda le Rav Nachman. We're about 20 lines at the bottom, smack middle of the Amid. The first word in line is Shalach. So Rav Chisda sent the following Shaila to Rav Nachman. Hari Amru lirekuva shalosh. The Chachamim said that if you hit someone, you pay lirekuva. You hit him with your knee, you have to pay 3 slime. Ulebiita, if you kick someone, chamish, you have to pay 5 slime. Ulisnai kares, and if you hit him with your donkey saddle, shleish, you have to pay 13 slime. Lepanda demara, you hit him with the handle of a shovel, the ule kupina, or the blade of a shovel, demara mai. What is the halacha? So Rav Chisda said to Rav Nachman, in a bunch of cases, I understand what the level of payment is, and these are payments that the truth is, if we take a moment, I know it is late, but if we take a moment and we peek at Rashi, Rashi explains that what's going on over here is minhag. Rashi says directly across that for these entities, we know what the minhag of Dayanim is to pay for what lebaishes. We're talking about the payment for damages, because there's a larger level of baishes in each of these cases, for kicking, for hitting with the saddle. Now asks Rav Chisda to Rav Nachman, but what is the story if you hit someone with the handle of a shovel or the blade of a shovel? So Shalach Lei responded, Shalach Chisda, Kansa kam migvas in Bavel. What's going on over here? Are you collecting kanasim in Bavel? Aimli guf. Tell me the story, and then I can tell you what the psak is. So Shalach Lei, so Rav Chisda responded to Rav Nachman. The story was as follows: Ahu gargusa devei Tari. There was a certain gargusa, which is a well, a water cistern that belongs to two people. Every day, every day one person was his day to draw from the well. Asachad. So one guy came, and he drew water. What day that was in his Amrle Yoma Didihu. The other guy said, it's my day. And Lai Ashkach Bey. And what happened is they didn't listen to him. Shak up on the Demara. And so the other guy took a handle of a shovel and machye and smacked him. Amarle. So that's my shayla, said Rav Chisda to Rav Nachman. What do you have to pay in such a scenario? So Amarle, Rav Nachman responded, Meya Pandi. Hit him with 100 times over the shovel of the handle, and he wouldn't have to pay. Why? Even according to Mandam, the whole thing, you're not allowed to take law into your own hands. You're upset that this guy is in your well in your day. Still, who gives you the right to come along and hit him? But that's only b'makim seida. If you're losing, because it's your day to draw water, and you're not going to be able to because other guys drawing water. Of it in his it's a case of laws. Everyone agrees you're allowed to take law into your own hands. So in this case, you can hit him as much as you want. And we source this in Itmar Rav Yehuda Amar Lavin in Shdin Avshay and Rav Nachman Amar Avin in Shdin Avshay. Hey, Chadikam say the Kuli Amar Bligi Davin in Shdina Lin Avshay. Keep Bligi when it's a Machlek. They Chadilakam say Rav Yehuda Amar Lavin in Shdin Avshay. Why? To keep the like of Seda. Lazel Kamei Dayana. You're not losing anything, so go to Dayanim. Nachman Amar Avin in Shdin Avshay. Why? To keep the Vidin Avid Loi Tarach. Therefore, you don't have to bother to go to court. So that is how Rav Nachman responded about the fact that he's allowed to hit him as much as he wants with the shovel. Masiv, let's just finish up. It's a little bit of a sidebar sugya. So let's just finish up. Masiv Rav Kahana asks Rav Kahana and Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda said, Lavin and Shidin Avshay asks Rav Kahana ben Bagba Goimer. Al tikanis l'chatz chavercha lital as shalach. Do not go into your friend's house to get back your item. Shaloi b'rishas. Why not? Shemitira love ki ganif. He might think you're a ganif. Ella, so rather, Ella shaver hashina varmelo shali ani noitel. Rather, don't sneak into his house, break his teeth, and say to him, I'm taking my own item. So what do we see clearly? He asks Rav Kahana to Rav Yehuda. We see clearly from this brisa of Ben Bagbag that Avin and Shila Navshay, you're allowed to go in, you're allowed to fight with him to get back the item which is yours. So you, Rav Yehuda, said not. Amar Le, Rav Yehuda responds. We turn over to Chav Ches Amar Aleph for a moment. I apologize, we don't have the page in front of us. Amar Le, Rav Yehuda responds back to Rav Kahana. Imach, is this a kasha? Ben Baga Yichidahu. Polygraph Ale. The Rabbanan argue. Rav Yanai Amar, another taretz. Maisha Reshina. What does that mean? Bedin. I mean, bring it to Bezdin. Ask the Gemara Yachi if that is true. Then if Amar Lo, you wanted to bake his teeth, you should say and tell him. Why does the Amar Lo see him? Should say and they see him, referring to the Bezdin. Shali ani noitel. Shalayu noitel. Why does it say I'm taking my own object? It should say he is taking his own object. Therefore, it says the Gemara Kasha. Rav Yana is indeed a Kasha. But Lamaisa, we have a different teretz. The Ben Bagbag is a Shita Yechidah. That answers up the Kasha on Rav Yehuda, and we'll pick it up from the top of Chalches Amid Aleph, 5 lines down to Shema, as we'll continue the sugya of Avid and Shila Navshay tomorrow. Mirza Hashem.